"Sir, I'm going to need you to vacate this suite immediately, or I will have hotel security remove you." The words cut through the soft piano music drifting from the lobby below. Marcus Webb looked up slowly from the desk near the window. His reading glasses still perched at the end of his nose, a printed contract spread open in front of him. Outside the floor-to-ceiling glass, Chicago glittered under an early November sky. The lake flat and gray, the skyline sharp as broken crystal. He was 38 years old, medium build, no watch worth mentioning. Dark jeans, a simple black crew neck, sneakers that had seen 100 airports. The kind of man hotel staff learned to overlook when someone more interesting walked through the door. Dominic Hale, the assistant manager of the Alderton Grand, stood at the entrance of Suite 1402 with his chin lifted and his mouth already set for a fight he expected to win. He was 44, pressed into a charcoal blazer, cufflinks catching the light, the small flag of seniority pinned to his lapel like a medal he had awarded himself. Beside him stood Cecily Marsh, the hotel's VIP relations coordinator. 36, blonde hair pulled back, a practiced smile that did not reach her eyes, and behind them both, barely visible in the hallway, was a woman named Renata Cole. Renata Cole was 61 years old. She wore a cream cashmere coat and carried a bag that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She had flown in from New York that morning on a private charter, and she had been a guest of the Alderton Grand for 17 consecutive years. She had her preferences, she had her habits, she had her suite. Suite 1402. "Sir," Dominic said again, stepping further into the room as if the space already belonged to someone else. "This is not a request." Marcus removed his glasses. He set them down on the contract with the particular care of a man who had learned that patience was a sharper instrument than anger. "My name is Marcus Webb," he said. "I checked into this suite yesterday. My reservation is confirmed through Friday. We're aware of that." Dominic clasped his hands in front of him, a gesture that was supposed to look professional and only looked theatrical. "However, a situation has arisen that requires us to relocate certain guests." "Certain guests, not all guests. Certain ones." Marcus let that land without showing that it had. "What situation?" he asked. Cecily stepped in smoothly, the way she had been trained to smooth things that were already too rough to smooth. "We have an extraordinary VIP guest who specifically requires this suite for medical accessibility reasons. We deeply apologize for the inconvenience and want to assure you that we've prepared an equally beautiful room on the 11th floor." "Is the room on the 11th floor the same suite I booked?" Marcus asked. A pause. "It is a comparable." "That's not what I asked." Renata Cole shifted in the hallway. She didn't enter the room. She didn't need to. Her presence was the statement. The perfume she wore arrived ahead of her like an announcement. "Mr. Webb." Dominic lowered his voice in the manner of men who believe privacy and intimidation are the same thing. "We're trying to handle this with discretion. Mrs. Cole has certain needs that—" "I have a confirmed reservation," Marcus said. "I have documentation. I booked this suite 6 weeks ago for a specific business purpose." He gestured toward the spread of papers on the desk. "I have meetings this afternoon in this building. The business center on the 14th floor is directly accessible from this suite." That was not a coincidence. Dominic's jaw shifted. "We can arrange for meeting room access from any floor." "I didn't ask for a meeting room. I booked a suite with direct access to the business floor because I have back-to-back presentations beginning at 2 o'clock. Renata Cole sighed from the hallway. It was the sigh of a woman who had not been made to wait in a very long time. "Dominic," she said. Just his name. Quiet, final, and Dominic heard the full sentence in it. "Handle this." Something moved behind his eyes. Not conscience. Calculation. Renata Cole had spent, in Dominic's rough estimate, somewhere north of $400,000 at the Alderton Grand over 17 years. She had written commendations that had kept careers alive and complaints that had ended them. She was the kind of guest the hotel industry built its theology around. Marcus Webb had arrived with a carry-on bag and a printed stack of documents. Dominic had already chosen a side before he knocked on the door. "Mr. Webb, I'm afraid the hotel reserves the right to accommodate our highest-tier guests in the suites they require. We have upgraded your reservation at no charge." "You haven't upgraded my reservation," Marcus said. "You've replaced it with something lesser and called it an upgrade." He stood now, and he was taller than Dominic had calculated. Not imposing, just present. "I want to be clear about what is happening. I have a valid booking. I am seated in that booking. You are asking me to leave, not because of any policy, but because another guest prefers this room." The sentence arranged itself carefully in the air between them. Cecily glanced toward Dominic. Her smile had stiffened at the corners. Renata stepped 1 foot inside the suite and looked around with the proprietary ease of a woman returning to a room that had been rearranged in her absence. "He's making this more complicated than it needs to be," she said. Not to Marcus about him. As if he were a scheduling conflict rather than a person. "Mrs. Cole," Marcus said, turning toward her with the same measured calm he had held since the first sentence. "I understand this room is familiar to you. I understand you have preferences. I have a confirmed booking. If the hotel overbooked this suite, the conversation you need to have is with the hotel, not with me." Renata blinked. Her head tilted slightly, the way it did when something defied an expectation she had held. So long it had become invisible. People her position encountered did not speak this way. Not to her. Not in her vicinity. They accommodated. They nodded. They found a way to make her comfortable while making themselves smaller. This man had done none of those things. "Dominic," she said, her voice cool now. "I flew here specifically because I need this suite. The layout, the lighting, the proximity to the spa. My doctor has been very clear about my recovery needs, Mr. Webb," Dominic said, turning back. "We are asking you, as a matter of guest welfare, to cooperate. Guest welfare." Marcus repeated softly. "Whose?" The question sat there without apology. Dominic's neck flushed. He was accustomed to friction dissolving at this stage. Once the weight of the hotel's preference became clear, once guests understood that certain people's comfort took priority by unspoken consensus. Most guests internalized this without being told. They read the room. They moved. Marcus Webb was reading the room perfectly. He simply wasn't moving. "I'll tell you what," Dominic said, and something hardened in his tone. "If you choose not to cooperate voluntarily, I'll need to involve hotel security, and I'd prefer not to make this unpleasant for anyone." "You've already made it unpleasant," Marcus said. "You made it unpleasant when you walked in here with a decision already made and called it a request." A woman in the hallway had stopped walking. Her name was Joanna Trask. She was 52, a retired federal investigator from Detroit. Staying in room 1408 down the hall, she had stepped out to find ice and had frozen near her door when she heard the voices. Her eyes moved between the open doorway, the 2 hotel employees, the woman in the cream coat, and the man inside the room who had not raised his voice once. She stayed where she was. Inside the suite, Marcus's phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at the screen. His assistant, Daniel Kim, from their Chicago office 3 blocks away. "Prep call for Hargrove Capital is in 40 minutes. You want me to push it?" Marcus set the phone face down without answering. Not yet. Dominic had already decided what came next. His pride had entered the room ahead of his judgment, and now it would not let him reverse. "I'm calling security," he said. Cecily looked at him quickly. She was not without doubt. It showed in the small tension at the corner of her mouth, the way her fingers pressed together. But she said nothing. Her salary was smaller than her fear, and fear had stronger hands. Dominic lifted the phone on the desk near the suite entrance and spoke quietly into the receiver. Marcus watched him. He felt something old settle across his shoulders. Not defeat. Recognition. The weight of being precisely what you are, and still being asked to prove it, to perform it, to produce it for people who had already decided the answer before the evidence arrived. He thought of his grandmother's kitchen in Memphis, the way she would say, "Baby, some rooms don't want you. Walk in anyway. Sit down anyway. Make them say out loud what they're really thinking." He had spent 20 years walking into rooms. He sat back down at the desk. 2 security officers arrived within 4 minutes. The first was a large man named Terry Okafor, 40s, quiet eyes, the kind of stillness that came from having seen genuine emergencies and knowing this was not one. The second was younger, a woman named Brianna Santos, 29, her hand near her radio but not on it, her gaze moving around the room with the careful attention of someone assembling a picture before drawing a conclusion. Dominic met them near the door. Guest, refusing a room reassignment. He needs to vacate 1402. Terry looked at Marcus, then at the desk, the papers, the glasses, the phone face down. "Sir," Terry said, "I'm going to need to ask you to gather your belongings." Marcus did not look afraid. He looked the way people look when they have been here before. Not comfortable, never comfortable, but no longer surprised. "My name is Marcus Webb," he said, picking up his phone. He opened the camera. "I'm recording this. For the record, I am in Suite 1402 of the Alderton Grand Hotel in Chicago, Illinois. I checked in yesterday under a confirmed reservation made 6 weeks ago. I have not damaged property. I have not violated any policy. I am being asked to leave because another guest has requested this suite." He turned the camera slowly around the room, capturing Dominic, Cecily, Renata in the doorway, both officers, and the spread of business documents on the desk. "This is what is happening." Renata Cole's expression did not change, but something inside it shifted, a small tightening around the eyes, the first faint interference of doubt. Cecily looked at the floor. Dominic stepped forward. "Sir, recording hotel staff without consent is legal in Illinois," Marcus said. "One-party consent state." Terry cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, turning toward Renata almost involuntarily, "do you have documentation of your reservation for this specific suite?" The question surprised everyone, including Renata. "I beg your pardon," she said. "I'm just, with the recording, I want to make sure we have the full picture before, Terry." Dominic said it the way Renata had said his name, one word, a sentence inside it. "Stop thinking. Stand with the right people." Terry went quiet, something in his face closed like a door. Brianna Santos looked at the floor. She had been taking in everything, every word, every position in the room. The boarding pass, metaphorically speaking, the printout of Marcus's confirmation, visible on the desk, was real. The man had made his case 5 times without ever raising his voice. She had worked hotel security for 3 years. She had never once believed that quiet men were the problem. But Dominic was her supervisor's contact. Renata Cole's name was known to everyone on the security team. She did not speak. Joanna Trask was still in the hallway. She had not moved in 6 minutes. She was watching the way she had watched 1,000 interviews, 100 depositions, a career's worth of situations where the truth was visible, but the people with authority were pointing in the wrong direction. She had retired from federal work because she was tired of exactly this. And here it was in a hotel hallway on a Tuesday morning, wearing a cashmere coat and a blazer with a lapel pin. She pressed record on her phone. Inside the suite, Marcus was packing. Not because he had surrendered, because he understood something the people in the room had not yet grasped. The scene was already over. They had already spoken. Every word was recorded. Every choice was visible. What happened next was not about a suite anymore. He placed his laptop into his bag, his chargers, his documents, each one gathered with unhurried precision, like evidence being sealed. His printed confirmation, which he folded once and put in his jacket pocket. He zipped the bag. He stood. He looked at Dominic Hale. "You didn't verify my reservation," he said. "You didn't ask me to show you anything. You walked in here with a decision already made and dressed it up as a policy. I want you to know that I noticed. He looked at Cecily. She didn't meet his eyes. He looked at Renata Cole, who was already beginning to move toward the desk, as if its surface had always been hers. You should know, Marcus said, that I chose this hotel because Alderton Grand is one of 3 finalists in the hospitality technology contract my company is evaluating. I had my first review meeting scheduled in 40 minutes. He paused. I still do. It just won't be upstairs. Renata's hand, halfway toward the chair, stopped. Dominic blinked. Marcus walked past them all, past Terry, past Brianna, past Cecily, and into the hallway where a woman he had never met lowered her phone and looked at him with something that was not pity but was close to solidarity. He nodded at her once. She nodded back. The elevator opened. He stepped in. The doors closed behind him. In the hallway, Joanna Trask looked down at her phone. The video was 4 minutes and 11 seconds long. She had caught everything from Terry's uncertainty to Dominic's silence. Command to the moment Marcus said the word contract. She opened her posting app. Her caption took less than a minute to write. Black man with confirmed reservation asked to vacate his hotel suite so a white VIP guest could have the room. Hotel security called. He recorded the whole thing. Chicago, Alderton Grand. Someone explain. She tagged 2 news accounts she had followed since her federal days. She tagged a civil rights organization whose work she had respected for a decade. She tagged the Alderton Grand's official account. Then she hit post and walked back to her room. She did not expect what happened next. She was 52, and she had spent her career watching injustice get absorbed quietly, processed in private, settled for amounts that required confidentiality agreements. She had posted because she was tired of absorbing things quietly. The world was different now. Not fixed, but different. By the time she sat down on her bed with her coffee, the video had 43 shares. By the time she finished the coffee, it had 4,000 views. Her phone began to shake with notifications. Downstairs, in suite 1402, Renata Cole stood at the window where Marcus had stood looking out at the lake. The room felt different than it had in previous years. The light was the same. The layout was the same. But the air had a texture she didn't recognize. Cecily knocked softly and entered. Mrs. Cole, can I bring you anything? Has this been resolved? Renata asked, still looking at the window. Yes, of course. Mr. Webb has vacated. What did he mean? Renata turned. About a contract. Cecily hesitated. I'm sure it's find out, Renata said. Cecily nodded and retreated. In the Alderton Grand's 14th floor business center, Marcus Webb sat at a private table in the corner, his laptop open, his materials spread in front of him, his phone propped against a water glass. Daniel Kim's face filled the screen from the office 3 blocks away. Are you okay? Daniel asked. He was 31, the kind of assistant who noticed everything and filed it carefully. He had seen the look on Marcus's face on video calls enough times to know the difference between tired and something heavier. I'm fine, Marcus said. You're not in the suite. No. Daniel waited. They relocated me, Marcus said, not dramatically. Just as information, Daniel's face changed. He had worked for Marcus Webb for 4 years. He knew what relocated me meant in a hotel, on an airplane, at a restaurant. He knew what relocated meant when the person being moved was a black man in an expensive space, and the person he was being moved for was not. Do you want me to? Yes, Marcus said. Pull the Alderton Grand file. Every communication from their procurement team going back 8 months. Every email, every call log, every proposal version. I want it ready for the Hargrove presentation, and I want a separate copy sent to our legal team. Daniel was already typing. Done. What else? Get Rachel on the phone. She knows what to do. Rachel Osei was Marcus's general counsel, 44 years old, with a law degree from Georgetown and 17 years of experience that had made her exceptionally good at 2 things: building airtight cases and delivering them in a voice so calm, it made the other side feel like they were already losing. She picked up on the second ring. Tell me. she said. Marcus told her. He didn't dramatize it. He laid it out the way he had been laying out facts since his first pitch deck at 24, with precision, with sequence, with every relevant detail in order. When he finished, Rachel was quiet for 4 seconds. Do you have the recording? Yes. Good. Don't send it to anyone yet. Give me 1 hour. I have a presentation at 2. You'll make your presentation, she said. I'll handle the rest. In the executive offices of Web Meridian Technologies, a company that Marcus Webb had built from a 2-person analytics startup in a Memphis co-working space into a 200-employee platform serving Fortune 500 clients in 11 cities. Rachel Osei opened 3 windows on her screen simultaneously. The hotel's corporate communications directory, the Alderton Grand's parent company's investor filing from last quarter, and a legal memo she had drafted 6 months ago for a discrimination case that had never needed to be filed. She had hoped it would never need to be filed. She updated the date at the top of the memo. Downstairs, Cecily Marsh returned to Suite 1402 and told Renata Cole what she had found. His name is Marcus Webb, Cecily said. He is the founder and CEO of Web Meridian Technologies. She paused. They are one of 3 companies in the final round of the Alderton Group's hospitality technology contract. The contract is, she hesitated. How much? Renata asked. $65 million. Renata did not move for several seconds. And he had meetings today, she said. It was not a question. She was replaying the morning. The desk covered in papers. The way he had said this was not a coincidence. The phone he had set face down. He had a 2 o'clock presentation with Hargrove Capital, Cecily said quietly. They're the investment group funding the hotel group's expansion. Alderton is trying to close them. Renata sat down in the chair by the window. Dominic's mistakes, stacked one on top of another, had the weight of a building now. She could feel the floors settling. Where is Dominic? She asked. On the 14th floor, Joanna Trask's video had passed 200,000 views. She was sitting at the desk in room 1408, reading comments with the careful attention she had once given to surveillance transcripts. People were sharing it. People were angry. People who had been moved from hotel rooms, bumped, from upgrades, escorted from spaces where their reservations were inconvenient to someone more expected. Those people were finding the video and putting their own stories in the comments, like receipts from a life spent proving they belonged. A journalist from a Chicago news outlet had sent her a direct message. Then a second one, from a national cable network's digital team. Then a third. She replied to none of them yet. She called her daughter instead. Mom, I just saw your post. I know. Is that real? That happened in your hotel, down the hall, Joanna said. I watched the whole thing. Her daughter was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? I'm fine, Joanna said. I'm angry. Yeah, her daughter said softly. Me too. In the Hargrove Capital presentation room on the building's 3rd floor, Marcus Webb stood in front of a 20-foot screen and presented the Web Meridian hospitality platform to 4 investors with combined assets north of $3 billion. He was composed, he was precise, he was good. He had always been good. The room listened with the focused attention that serious money gives to serious ideas. 47 minutes into the presentation, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, only because he had told Daniel to interrupt only in one specific circumstance. The screen showed a notification from Rachel. Alderton Group's communications director just called me. They're aware of the video. Marcus set the phone down. He looked at the investors. Excuse me for one moment, he said. He looked at the lead partner, a white-haired man named Gerald Hargrove, who had said almost nothing for 47 minutes and had therefore said everything. Mr. Hargrove, I want to be fully transparent with you about something that happened this morning in this building. Gerald Hargrove leaned forward slightly. Marcus told him. Same precision, same sequence. He showed them the video on his phone, held up so the 4 people at the table could see. No theatrics, no emotion that wasn't earned. When it finished, Gerald Hargrove looked at the table for a moment. Then he looked up. "Are you pursuing this?" he asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "Good," Hargrove said. And his voice had an edge to it that had not been there before, the voice of a man who had also spent his life in rooms deciding who belonged. "Continue." The Alderton Group's emergency call was convened at 5 o'clock Eastern. On the screen, the parent company's CEO, a woman named Claudette Voss, 58, sharp-eyed and currently very still. The hotel group's legal director, the communications chief, the VP of operations. And on a separate window, alone in a room in Chicago with his lapel pin no longer gleaming, Dominic Hale. Rachel Ozzie joined from Web Meridian's Chicago conference room. Marcus beside her. He had changed into a jacket. He had not changed his expression. Claudette Voss opened the call without pleasantries. "Mr. Webb, I want to begin by saying that what I've seen today does not reflect our standards." "With respect," Marcus said, "it reflects exactly your standards. It reflects what your employees believed was acceptable, which means it reflects what your culture has made them feel safe doing." Claudette absorbed this. Her communications chief looked pained. Rachel shared her screen. The video played again, this time in a boardroom, in front of the people who signed the company's value statements and approved the training budgets, and had somehow produced Dominic Hale and Cecily Marsh, and an institutional reflex that treated certain guests as inconveniences rather than customers. When it ended, no one on the call spoke first. Marcus spoke. "There are a few things I need to explain to this group. The first is about my reservation. 6 weeks ago, I booked Suite 1402s specifically because my contract review meeting with your hospitality technology procurement team was on Wednesday. Your parent company's investor presentation was Thursday, and the Hargrove Capital meeting was today. Every room on this floor was chosen by my assistant with surgical precision. Not for luxury, for logistics." He paused. "Your assistant manager, Dominic Hale, did not ask me a single verification question. He did not check my reservation in the system. He did not ask to see documentation. He made a visual assessment and a decision. You should understand what that means about what your employees have been trained to see." Claudette's hands, folded on the table, tightened slightly. "The second thing," Marcus continued, "is about Web Meridian's position in your technology contract review. We are one of 3 finalists for a $65 million platform contract that would modernize your guest relations systems across 42 properties. The platform includes a bias detection module for service interactions. The irony of this morning is not lost on me." He let that sit for a moment. "And the third thing is that I hold, through my investment fund, a minority voting position in Alderton Group's parent company. I want this board to understand the full picture of who was in that room this morning." The legal director's pen stopped moving. Claudette Voss looked directly into the camera. "What are you asking for, Mr. Webb?" "Accountability," Marcus said, "not as leverage." "Because it's right," Rachel opened a document on her shared screen. "Immediate suspension of Dominic Hale and Cecily Marsh pending termination review, with full documentation of the chain of events shared with HR. A written public statement, not a non-apology. Not we regret any inconvenience, but a direct acknowledgement of what happened, why it was wrong, and what consequence it produced. An independent review of guest relocation practices and the training protocols that govern them, conducted by an outside party. A public commitment to the bias detection module as a mandatory component of any technology contract Alderton Group signs, and a meeting within 30 days between Marcus's team and the hotel group's full leadership to discuss what a culture audit looks like at scale." "And if we decline?" Claudette asked, not belligerently. She was taking measurements. "Web Meridian withdraws from the technology contract consideration. My fund places its voting stake under active review, and every piece of documentation, the video, the recording, the timeline, the witness account, The follow-up communications goes to every relevant regulatory and public forum. Rachel added quietly, "We also have a second video, captured by a guest in the hallway, which includes audio of the interaction from a different angle, and a statement from a retired federal investigator who observed the entirety of the incident from 4 feet away." Claudette closed her eyes for 2 seconds. When she opened them, the calculation was finished. "Call a vote," she said to the legal director. Dominic Hale was not surprised when the call came. He had felt the morning unravel for hours, had watched Cecily avoid his eyes in the corridor, had seen the notification count rising on the company's social accounts when he passed a monitor near the front desk. He had told himself it would fade. He had told himself it was just social media. He had told himself the hotel would protect him because the hotel needed him. He had told himself the same things the hotel's culture had been telling itself for years. The call lasted 9 minutes. His employment was terminated effective immediately, pending final HR processing. He was asked to surrender his badge before leaving the building. He sat in the staff lounge for a long time afterward. Alone, he thought about the moment he had walked into that suite. The decision already made, the side already chosen, the assumption so deeply embedded he hadn't even recognized it as a choice. Just instinct, just the way things worked. He had made the same choice so many times he had stopped counting. Cecily received her call separately. She submitted a written statement the following morning that named every moment in sequence. She cried while she wrote it. She sent it anyway. Renata Cole's legal team contacted Alderton's corporate office 2 days later. She was not banned from the property. Marcus had not requested that. But the terms of her relationship with the hotel were quietly reviewed at the executive level. Certain arrangements, she was told, would need to go through formal channels going forward. The informal accommodations that had operated for 17 years on the understanding that her comfort was the hotel's first priority were acknowledged, documented, and restructured. Patricia Cole did not lose her wealth. She did not lose her world, but the world learned her name in a context she had not chosen. Some invitations slowed, some lunches were rescheduled, and never rescheduled again. The social consequences of wealth are slow and quiet, and they cut in a way that courtrooms cannot. Joanna Trask's video reached 4 million views by Thursday morning. She gave one interview to a journalist she had worked with briefly during a federal case 15 years ago and had always found honest. She said what she had seen. She used the words clear and deliberate and wrong. She did not speculate. She had spent a career knowing the difference. Brianna Santos, the younger security officer, submitted a formal incident review, requesting additional clarity training for her department on how to handle disputed reservation conflicts. The request was filed and this time acted on. 6 weeks later, Alderton Group announced the signing of a $65 million hospitality technology contract with Web Meridian Technologies. The press release used words like innovation and guest experience and inclusive service culture. What it didn't say, and what every person on the Alderton Group's board understood without needing it said, was that the contract included a mandatory bias detection review of every major service interaction protocol across all 42 properties, and that the CEO who had designed that system had sat in a room in Chicago while hotel staff chose which guest mattered. 3 months after that, Web Meridian's bias detection module flagged 17 separate incidents across 6 Alderton properties in its first operational quarter. Guests relocated, upgrades quietly declined, reservation discrepancies that had never been investigated, and the hotel group's leadership team sat in a room with the data and finally, uncomfortably, saw what their culture had been producing beneath the marble floors and the soft piano music and the practiced smiles. The process was not clean. It was not fast. Accountability never is. But it had started in a suite on the 14th floor with a man who did not raise his voice, and a desk covered in papers, and the particular kind of patience that is not passive at all, but is in fact the sharpest form of power that exists, the patience of someone who has decided to make the truth visible and is simply waiting for the room to catch up. Marcus Webb flew back to Memphis on Friday evening. He sat in seat 14A, a window seat with no significance attached to it, and watched the city pull back and flatten and disappear into the darkening grid of the Midwest. He thought about his grandmother. He thought about what it costs a person to stay composed in a room that has decided not to see them. He thought about the fact that he had won this morning and still did not feel finished, because winning one room was not the same as changing the building. His phone buzzed. Daniel Kim. Final contract signature confirmed. Rachel says to call her tomorrow. Also, Hargrove Capital wants to schedule a follow-up. They're asking if we'd consider an expanded engagement. Marcus looked out the window. The lights below were small and scattered and impossibly numerous, and somewhere down in that grid, 17 hotel guests had been quietly given back what had been quietly taken from them. And Joanna Trask was probably eating dinner with her daughter. And Brianna Santos was starting a shift, and Alderton Grand Suite 1402 had a new guest who had no idea what the room had witnessed. He typed back, "Tomorrow. Good night." The plane climbed. The city disappeared. The sky opened into the particular dark that only exists above the clouds, where there is no turbulence and no noise and nothing between you and the fact that you are exactly as high as you were willing to go. He closed his eyes. Dignity, he thought, is not something anyone gives you. It is something you carry in the room with you, even when the room does not want it there. Especially then.